So welcome everyone. I'm just going to say a few brief things, then I'll get out of the way. I'm Sean Bernard, the Creative Writing Program Director at the University of La Verne. And thank you all for joining us today. The second of 4 fiction readings we're hosting this fall and winter. As I said last time, I'm very excited about this series because we're highlighting the best thing of all, and that is our students and their work. And we're featuring not only current students in the program, but also our excellent program graduates. So I'm very pleased to be welcoming back program graduates throughout this series. It's kind of a special thing we haven't done before, and it's been very, enjoyable talking with our graduates and keeping in touch with them. And today, each author will read for 15 to 20 minutes or so. And after they've completed the readings, we'll have a question and answer session. And now, without further ado, our 2 readers today, Jazzy Venagas and Aimee Campos.
Aimee Campos graduated from La Verne's Creative Writing program in 2019. She is currently pursuing her MFA in Creative Writing at Mount St. Mary's University and has been published in the Mosaic Art and Literary Journal. Some of her favorite writers and inspirations include Ottessa Moshfegh, Roxane Gay, Carmen Maria Machado, and Amy Bender.
So I will be reading a original piece called Sweet Young Thing. I picked a Sunday to kill my husband. I didn't know much about murder. I'd seen gory movies, the kind where the masked serial killer saws into a hot young thing after she's had a romp with Billy or Jimmy or whoever the fuck. Sally Mae was the one who liked those films the most. We'd watch one every time the moms got together, mani-pedis drying in the dark as we guzzled wine and made a bet on who was going to get chopped in half first. I was the honorary member of the group. Not a mom, but close enough to Sally Mae that she couldn't not invite me. Every Saturday night, they gathered in her living room. And I'd listen to the group of moms bitch about little Sarah's piano recital and how their iced tea recipe wasn't good anymore and how they thought their husbands were sleeping with their secretaries. And I'd think, Lord Almighty, please don't ever let me turn into one of them. One particular Saturday night, right before the sequence of events that led me to decide to kill my husband, Melissa Bridges was confiding in the moms and I that she thought her son was dating a devil worshiper. I was on my second Xanax of the night, courtesy of Sally Mae's stash in the medicine cabinet, when Clark called to ask why the chicken I'd left in the oven was so dry. This was every Saturday night because baked chicken is the only thing I knew how to make without turning into a slab of burnt. The phone call was always my cue to go home because Clark wasn't big on these movie nights, and I had to prove that I wasn't as dependent on these escapes as I really was. I had reluctantly left in the middle of Melissa's moaning of her future daughter-in-law's tongue ring. Have a good night, kitty. Sally Mae ushered me to her front door, her toddler giving a shriek that actually made me grateful to leave. Sally Mae was my best friend, but her kid was an annoying little asswipe. Say hi to Clark for me, and don't forget, dinner on Wednesday. I nodded and walked back to my house in a disorienting cloud, smacking my lips together because it felt like I was going to vomit. Clark met me at the door, his shirt untucked and his pudgy fingers reaching for the few wisps of hair he had left. Clark was aging terribly, and I wished I drank another glass of wine before coming back to the inevitable advances he would make in the bedroom. He was getting tired of my headaches and long periods that prevented me from engaging him. Kitty, that chicken was criminal. Are you sure you're from around these parts? He adopted an outlandish southern tone and brought a hand to my back while I brushed past him. Just go pick up some chicken from Tina's. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, scratching my neck. The landline rang, and it wasn't supposed to ring because it wasn't Sunday, and I knew Clark was going to ask how it could be one of the moms when I had just seen them, because that was who I told him it was, and there was no need for him to know otherwise. On second thought, come here, I cringed inwardly and sat back on the counter, beckoning for my husband to come closer. Come here, sugar pie, Clark Kent. My Lois Lane, or should I say Catwoman. Clark wrapped his hands around my waist, bringing me closer to him. I wanted to throw up so badly. I could feel the wine regurgitate up my throat. If there was any divine force in the world, it stepped in to prevent me from spewing wine and the handful of popcorn I'd eaten at Sally Mae's. Do you think we can try this time for a baby? Clark's neediness was grotesque. I'll go take my pills, special pills prescribed by the gynecologist to make sure I was pumped up for a speedy conception. Everyone in town knew Clark wanted an heir so badly. I'd watched Clark ascend up the stairs and ran to my private bathroom. I took my birth control like always and sat on the sink until I couldn't put it off any longer and went upstairs. Afterward, Clark rolled out of bed and said he was going to go buy a bucket from Tina's Chicken Palace across town, and I laid there and nodded, waiting until he was gone to slide out of bed and reach for the landline, dialing the number I'd seen on the phone screen. Kitty girl, I've been calling you all day. I could hear an exhale on the other end, followed by the click of a keyboard. Don't call me on Saturdays. How many times do I gotta tell you? I'd gone to the bathroom to get a bath running, making note of the pile of dirty laundry sitting in the corner. These cleaning girls Clark hired only served for him to eye because they sure as hell weren't cleaning my house properly. On the other end, Elijah sighed. Sorry, I've been missing you is all. You saw my wife tonight, didn't you? I heard she's telling half the town she knows who I'm sleeping with. She thinks you're sleeping with little Margaret. My secretary, Elijah laughed on his end. She's a kid. The moms were right to worry. Their husbands were falling into other hands, but it wasn't the secretaries they had to worry about. Elijah was the husband of one of the moms that hung around Sally Mae's. Her name was Elise, and she was gorgeous, a model actually, which is why it still blew my mind her husband was coming to me. It's not like I was shacking up with all the husbands, just Elijah, Robert, and Will. 3 men who loved to give me money and then go back to their respective wives and play house. We all won. I heard the front door open, followed by the clack of keys. Kitty, I brought chicken. I spoke in a whisper. Don't call again. Do you want to go to the tracks again? I have to get out of this house. Elise and the kids are fine. See you then. I ended the call and placed the phone back into the receiver quickly, putting on my robe and going downstairs. Clark leaned against the kitchen counter, gnawing on a chicken leg. He pushed the bucket over to me, and I shook my head, grabbing another glass of water. Clark went into telling me about all the people he'd run into while waiting for his chicken order. I made the usual noises because all these people just loved to latch onto Clark and inflate his ego. It had always been the same, just a bunch of leeches trying to suck off a crumb of Clark's money. My money. I still remembered how everyone had talked about our marriage for weeks because they surely never thought Kitty Mars was going to bag Clark Hall. An age difference of 10 years wasn't that wild in this small town on the cusp of Virginia, but people like to make a fuss anyway, because Clark and I had met at a beauty pageant when I was 14. The pageant had of course been Little Miss Sweet Thing, and I can't say I was surprised when this pageant was laid to rest a year after I'd participated. Everybody knew the Hall family and their shiny cars and big house on the edge of town. And if you were going to get a chance to be with one of the Halls, then you had to sink your teeth into one of them, much like a rabid dog. Kitty Sugar, you had to think with your legs. Mama was one of those debutantes who had whittled her youth down in cigarettes and rum. When Clark and I had begun to go out, it had been like she was the one going out with him. She'd made sure to leave the house for us to come back to whenever we grabbed a burger or went for a stroll through the park. For having a lot of money, Clark didn't have much of a clue on how to spend it. And you do whatever you need to do, Miss Kitty. Mama had pinched my cheek and showed me yet another dress she'd bought for my dates. My little angel eyes, you're going to get us into that house. And remember, a lady never gives it away for free. Yes, Mama. I love my mama, I really do. Say what you will about her intentions, but she always wanted the best for me. She'd wept real honest to God happy tears when I married Clark. I was so happy she hadn't been around to see all that richness go to waste thanks to Clark's father, Clark Sr. Stupid old man had to go fall in love with a waitress in New York and fled town with almost the entire Hall fortune. Clark had slowly built up an empire again, but it wasn't the same as before, when all that money was stacked up just waiting for me. We still maintained appearances, of course, and kept some luxuries, but it was nothing like before. So while Clark got us all that money back, I was happy to get whatever the mom's husbands wanted to give me. And they were pretty generous, particularly Elijah. I'm going out of town with Sally Mae on Wednesday. Wednesday, Clark frowned, then relaxed. Another spa day. Yes, just for a few hours. I watched him reach into the bucket for another piece of chicken. Elijah liked to take me to the horse races a few towns over, where people knew him but didn't know enough to know I wasn't his wife. Clark licked his fingers. Do you think she can treat you? We lost a major client today, and I don't think we're going to have a major pay this week. Gotta think about the bills on this house, and I owe Thomas from accounting his bonus. You want me to ask Sally Mae for money? That's so embarrassing. I'll figure it out. I left the kitchen, digging my hands into my thighs. Kitty, don't be like that, Clark called after me. We're secured another client, but you know how it goes. Come on, kitty cat. His voice died off as I climbed the stairs, already looking forward to Wednesday, when Elijah would treat me to whatever I wanted. On Wednesday, I waved Clark off to work and let him kiss my cheek. His suit looked too small on him, but I didn't even care enough to point it out. As soon as he left, I got in my car and drove the hour-long trip to meet Elijah. I smoothed my dress as I got out, letting him kiss my cheek before climbing into his car's passenger seat. This car was the newest model, and my model from 2 years ago looked decrepit next to it. I tried to ignore the way this comparison bothered me and turned to look at Elijah. What'd you tell Elise? Work retreat. What about you? Elijah was far more handsome than Clark, and they were the same age. I'm sure Elijah didn't eat buckets of chicken for dinner. Spa day with Sally Mae. Got it. Oh, hold on. Elijah refrained from starting the car and turned to grab something from behind my seat. I got you this. Most expensive one and made out of Italian straw and peacock feathers imported from Turkey, whatever that means. I took out the delicate hat, turning it in my hands. It oozed pompousness, and the four-figure price tag glowed. I love it. I put it on immediately, and Elijah peeled out to make it to the tracks. As we held hands and walked to the concession box, I let Elijah do the talking. I didn't give a shit about horse races, and I never listened when he tried to explain betting and picking a horse, but I was interested when he won a lot of money. If he won a lot, he would use some of his earning to rent us out a beautiful hotel room at an expensive hotel downtown for an hour or two. Last time, I'd taken a few thousand from his wallet while he was in the bathroom. He either didn't miss them or he didn't care. Kitty, want to bet? Elijah looked at me. What, me? You could double, triple. Make yourself a pretty penny, buy something new and shiny. Elijah winked, grabbing his ticket from the attendant. Unless you don't have the cash, I could let you borrow. I nodded, quickly pulling my wallet out. I have some money. The board had a bunch of stupid names, but my eyes went directly to the last one. That one. Ma'am, you're betting on the wrong one, really. The attendant dropped his tone. Elijah also butt in. Go with old Yeller, come on, that one's great. No, I want that one. The attendant shrugged. $100 on Friday the 13th. Who names a horse that? Elijah walked next to me on our way to our seats. Worst name ever. He shut up when the horses sped off. Friday the 13th was all black with a streak of white along their middle. I pressed my legs together as I watched it, squeezing my hands together as it glided past the other ones. It was beautiful, but there was something about the way that it ran that made it seem almost human. It trotted quickly, but it seemed to jerk forward, like its limbs were foreign to it. I won $3,000. I stuffed the money into my wallet and craned my neck back to where Friday the 13th was being taken to the stables or whatever. 1 second, restroom. I walked away from Elijah and walked over to the little gated area that led to the stables. There were a few people loitering around, but as I got closer, the jockey who I'd recognized as Friday's handler was standing on the other side, smoking a cigarette. Hi, I leaned against the gate, batting my eyes. Are you Friday's handler? He looked at me and perked up. Yeah, basically. Did he bring you luck today? A lot. He's so beautiful. I wanted to give him a personal thank you. I gripped the bars of the gate, taking off my hat and letting my hair fall forward. Is there any way you could let me through? The jockey hesitated. I don't know. Last time I let a lady and she got banned from the racetracks, and I lost my pay for the day. Oh, come on, please. I won't tell. Just tell them I'm your friend. I'll be super duper grateful. I scratched my neck, making sure to stick my chest out. The final straw must have been when I innocently stretched, feeling the skirt of my dress right up. I knew there was a reason why I picked it. It was a child's XL, so it would show major ass whenever I needed. Okay, but just a minute, all right? I followed the jockey quickly. If anyone sees, you're here with me, David. The jockey brought his name up quickly. What's your name? Kitty. Where is he? Lady, relax, he's right here. I stopped in my tracks, taking in the horse. He looked even more majestic. He whined and shook his mane, heaving a great sigh before bowing his head. Our eyes met, something ripped open in my chest, my stomach dropping. His eyes were bright brown, almost hazel. You're gorgeous. I wasn't obsessed with animals or anything, but beauty wasn't hard to miss. If this horse was human, I'd assume he'd be the statue of David's muse. Friday the 13th whined again, and the jockey stepped back. You should go. Please, just leave me with him for a minute or two. I grabbed the jockey's hand and brought it to my thigh. I didn't even think of Elijah, who probably thought I'd passed out on the toilet or been kidnapped. The jockey sputtered. He only nodded and stepped back. Okay, but just a minute or two. He walked away. Aren't you such a beauty? I felt foolish talking to this horse out loud, but I couldn't stay silent. The sun caught his mane as he stepped forward. You should dye your hair red. What? I looked around the stables, but it was me, and Friday, and the other horses. You should go red. I think it would look nice. Also, don't sleep with David. He cries a lot. I mean, I wasn't planning to. You can talk? Kind of. I'm not moving my mouth, but you can hear me, right? Yes. That's only happened a few times. What's your name? Kitty. Is your name really Friday the 13th? Yes. Cute, right? The horse neighed and struck the ground with one hoof a few times. Sorry, nervous tick. You're not supposed to be here. You're not going to try and kiss me like the other one, right? God, no, but you did win me a lot of money, so thank you. You're welcome. I'm pretty fast, but I only win when I feel like it. It's so funny to see some old man lose his shit because he lost all his money betting on me. A lot of people don't bet on me anyway because of the name. Are you here with your family? No, it's complicated. In no time, I told Friday all about my life, his eyes boring into mine while I talked. Kitty, you could have totally been a pageant queen. You think? For sure. And Clark sounds ugly and boring. I don't understand why you're still married to him. If I were you, I'd just kill him. Kill him? I laughed, suddenly awestruck when Friday inched forward, his mane narrowly touching my shoulder. I can't kill him. Why not? You think anyone would care? Plus, it's what he would get for not giving you all his money. You're too pretty for a guy like him anyway. And if you don't kill him, it sounds like heart disease is going to get him anyway. You think I'm pretty? I looked around the stables. No one had called me pretty, not even Elijah, who supposedly knew I was too good for Clark. The only people who called me pretty once upon a time were Mama and a 24-year-old Clark. I don't know why. Hey, lady, your time's up. I saw the jockey walking my way and turned to look at Friday. I have to go. Okay, but come back tomorrow, right? You're the nicest, sweetest gal I've met here. I felt warm. Friday, a hand closed around my elbow. I yanked it away as Friday neighed again, and I managed to break away and run for the gate. Oh, come on. The jockey didn't chase after me, and I managed to slip out of the gate and meet Elijah. Elijah was pissed because I'd been gone for 20 minutes, but he followed me to his car anyway. I balanced the hat on my head and sat in the passenger's seat. Buying Friday? I imagined him and I in my backyard, him lying in my living room. He'd be the talk of the town. We'd be the talk of the town. Clark would throw a fit, but the thought of owning Friday was exhilarating. Kitty and Friday. It had a beautiful ring to it. After I met Friday, everything seemed golden. Elijah complained to me about his marriage, the drive back to my car, but I didn't even say a word. And then when I got home, Clark was asleep in the living room, so I didn't even have to pretend to listen to him either. The next day, I woke up early and waved Clark off to work again, but this time, the moment his car disappeared, I couldn't wait any longer before making the drive to Friday. The tracks were nearly empty, as it was quite early, but I walked up to place my bet. I had yesterday's winnings tucked neatly into my pocket. How much could I bet? I had to show Friday I was confident in him. I bet the whole 3,000. I sat on the stands, the only woman alone in a sea of obnoxious and addicted gamblers. When I saw Friday, I nearly jumped up. I waved timidly, feeling his eyes meet mine. The jockey leaned forward and brushed his mane. Friday the 13th continued to look at me with his beautiful eyes. The horses were off, and Friday fell behind immediately. I knew he was going to get back in speed and win like last time, but he finished in 8th place, and as I looked around the arena, I felt my stomach drop. $3,000 gone, just like that. I didn't want to run into David the jockey from yesterday, so I hung around the gate and thought of a glass of wine. Wine helped me distress. One of the jockeys came out and looked at me. Are you visiting someone? David, I'm a friend. It's a surprise though. Can I go in? I threw my head back, making sure to make my eyes wide and innocent. Okay, but find one quickly so you don't get in trouble. The jockey held the gate open for me and I walked in before he could change his mind. I ran to Friday's stable, making sure no one caught me. Friday, what was that? I'm sorry I got distracted by you. I didn't think you'd make it today. Friday looked down, shaking his mane. I'm so sorry, Kitty. I really don't want you to think less of me. I don't think less of you, of course not. You're my friend. You're my best friend in this whole shitty place. If you can bring more money tomorrow, I promise I'll make it worth your while. You'll walk out with enough money to leave that shitty Bart. You mean Clark? Right. So come tomorrow? Okay. It's so funny that I'm here because yesterday I totally saw a figurine that reminded me of you. And Kitty, I think David's coming here soon, but come and bring the money tomorrow, okay? Friday's eyes opened and closed gently, a small whine escaping from him as he ducked his head. I'll see you tomorrow, he leaned forward and brushed his nose against my head. Is that time or can I keep going or?
How much more do you have, Aimee?
Oh, it was kind of long, but I wasn't sure where to start, so I just started from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, it's up to you. I think maybe time-wise, so we can have time for people to ask questions. And but if you feel like it, you could give us like a rundown of sort of what happens, or you could just leave it as a cliffhanger. It's up to you.
So basically, she's like totally obsessed with this horse, and the horse is giving her like the worst life advice ever. And he tells her to like kill her husband, and she is like, I don't want to kill him because I could go to jail and stuff like that. But then it's like there's like this breaking point and the husband finds out she's betting all of this money on this horse and he's losing it. And so then she like the husband confronts her and there's this whole thing and she feels like it's all falling apart. So she does go back to the horse and they agree to like kill her husband. That's it.
That's amazing. I look forward to hearing people's questions and thoughts about this when we get to the Q&A at the end. But that's fantastic. It's so much fun to hear your new fiction.
Jazzy Venagas is currently an undergraduate at the University of Laverne. She is majoring in creative writing and she's enjoying her 4th year in the writing program. She loves to read, write, roller skate, and eat pizza as often as she can. She hopes her work to take part in the world by helping others get lost or found in her written world, as she has once depended on the work of many great authors who have helped influence her into becoming the person she is today. So please help me welcome Jazzy Benegas.
Thank you. I'm going to be reading 2 pieces today. The first one is the larger one, so I'm going to read that one first, and it's called To Be a Butterfly. Molly, I told you to stop this nonsense. He walked down the hall to her room and came back with her wooden box that held her fragile collection of a dream. Quickly, he went over to the trash and emptied the hundreds of multicolored butterfly wings that fell into the plastic bag in silence, along with the box that came down much louder. Dad, stop! What are you doing? Chasing and jumping to reach the trash bag that he now held over his head, she cried and begged him to return her wings. Those are mine! You can't do this to me! She followed him out the door, clawing at his shirt to stop him from ruining her plan to happiness. He mumbled furiously at her ridiculous antics he was tired hearing about. What kind of a child wishes to be a butterfly? He thought. If only her mother were still alive to help raise her to be normal. He wouldn't have to deal with having a daughter who finds amusement in killing butterflies just to be one. Her yells rang through his head, making his head throb harder than it already had been while dealing with Molly. Trudging past the front yard towards the black trash bin, he opened the lid and threw the bag through Molly's efforts at holding his arm down. No, how could you throw them away? She threw punches at his turned back as he walked to the door that only made his frustration grow. With a hard turn, he bent down to grab her waist and threw her over his shoulders into the house. Kicking and yelling at her father, she screamed for help at the neighbors peeking by their doors and windows until her own wooden door, though she tried clutching it open, was forced to close. Molly had a fondness for butterflies and found a passion in wanting their wings. As a child, she walked through the garden that grew different bright-colored flowers throughout the backyard. Aimlessly, clasping her hands at the flying butterflies around her, she swirled along with them as they silently twirled around her clumsily moving figure. She jumped at the air, giggling at the chance of catching a butterfly. A few months later, her grandmother gave her a net to higher her chances in capturing them. With the first one she caught, red and yellow in color, she giddily held it in the palms of her hand. She squished him flat, killing the insect. Smiling down at her victim, she ripped the wings off its body and rushed towards her grandmother. Grandma, look, I stole them and now they're mine. With a pinch of her fingers, she held one in each hand and looked from one to the other, an eagerness clear in her eyes. Put them on my back. I want to be a butterfly. Those are too small for you. You'll need much bigger ones than those tiny things. Then an immediate idea came to Molly with a surge of hope. If she collects thousands and thousands of butterflies, collects their wings, pieces them into larger wings, then maybe she can be a butterfly too. Every day for 3 years, Molly caught butterflies of different shapes, colors, and sizes. By the end of a day, she'd let the living insects roam her room. She felt safe knowing they were with her, knowing the wings couldn't leave her sight. Molly became obsessive with her new hope. She'd spend her days fetching butterflies and spent countless nights dissecting them, wings in the box and bodies to the trash. Her father was not a fan of her dream. Killing insects for sport is not child play, he'd scold her, while ridding her room of potential wings. Foolish child, he'd call her. He never supported her ideas. They were idiotic and ridiculous. Her father always made her mind feel small, but unlike him, Molly's grandmother was her source of support and was the only person to make her ideas feel grand. The day her wings were thrown away, she found her way into Molly's room with the same wooden box she thought she would never see again. She found her granddaughter silently weeping and furiously tearing up the butterflies. Watching Molly's tiny hands roughly pull at the wings, she gently put her hand on her shoulder and presented her familiar box. In disbelief and excitement, she rushed to embrace her grandmother with new tears of joy. With her wings and sense of hope being returned, together they began to work with the butterflies in her room to continue her old collection. Do you think I can be a butterfly, Grandma? Molly asked as she watched and tried to mimic her grandmother's delicate tug with a yellow butterfly. She had a gentle way in parting the wings from the body, seamless and smooth with no damage to the wings. It's a wonderful idea from a wonderful child, she replied. I know you'll be a beautiful butterfly. And with a smile on their faces, They quietly ripped wings through the night. Their plan was set and ready to go. Molly and her grandmother worked all night to piece together her collection of wings and assembled them into one larger pair of multicolored wings that spanned out past Molly's 9-year-old arms. The wings were colorful and beautiful, with yellow, red, blue, orange, brown, and white integrated throughout a black outline of swirls, curls, and eye spots. With her father out of town for business, this was her only chance at becoming what she always dreamed of. She always knew it would be painful, but with her grandmother's help, she was determined to prove to her father that she was not a foolish child after all. In the attic, they set up an old hospital bed attached with the leather straps that was once her mother's by the only small window that would give enough light for her grandmother to work with. At noon, when the sun was at its highest and brightest, they made their way up to the attic. Molly was strapped face down to the bed, and while she lay alone anxiously awaiting her grandmother to return with her sewing kit, she looked out the window to see the tiny butterflies fly about her garden. "I will be one of you soon," she said, smiling down, and her strapped hand reached out and only a finger pressed at the warm glass. She wondered what her new life would be like, to fly around the sky and the world. She could go wherever, whenever, with no one to stop her. It would just be her and her wings. The idea made her swell in anticipation. Her grandmother's footsteps brought her out of her thoughts of happiness, and replaced it with a buckling nervousness. There was no going back now. Too much time, effort, and love was put into this dream, she reminded herself. It will only get better from now on. Her grandmother sat by her bedside and placed her shiny box of threads and needles on the table that held her large wings, the wings silently waiting to become a part of her. Looking up and down Molly's exposed back, she measured a thick red thread along her spine. "This shouldn't take too long," she assured Molly. "Are you ready, Molly?" Her eyes and hands focused on the needle and thread she was preparing for insertion. "I'm ready, Grandma," and her skinny, wrinkly hands placed the needle at the top of her spine and slowly pierced into Molly's skin. She slowly and intricately pushed and pulled the thread in and out of her back, while she quietly crooned about a butterflied Molly. "Molly, Molly, the butterflied girl, so beautiful and magical, with wings from wings. How pretty you look along the blue of the sky, to the heavens you'll fly, sweet butterflied girl." The wings seemed with the length of her spine as her grandmother's pin pierced and sewed along her back. Molly yelled in agony, with her strapped arms and legs feverishly shaking along with the pain that coursed through her nerves. Her blood covered her wings a bright crimson, along with her grandmother's hands. The pain took over her body as it thrashed to be free from her grandmother's needlework. Molly screamed and begged for her grandmother to stop, that she didn't want to do this anymore, that being a butterfly was a stupid dream. "Hush now, I'm almost done," she lilted. "You're going to be perfect." The throbbing in her spine numbed her limbs, the agony exhausting her of any energy she had left in her body. The wings, now soggy with blood, stuck to her back. Molly's mind and body gave into the numbing pain she could no longer fight. She gave into her torturous remorse dream that made her mind go black. No colors, no butterflies, no hope, no sky, just the thread and dead wings. And that's the first piece. For my second one, it is called Sugar. The man on the moon called me last night asking for sugar. I only had a spoonful left that I kept on my bedside table. I licked the tip of my pinky before I brought a thin layer of the delicious white dust to my tongue and told him I've run out. "You never have sugar," he complains and hangs up. The next morning he calls to ask if I've bought more sugar. I tell him I have not. I tell him to buy his own. His yearning sigh blew at the sweet grains, dropping a couple on the ground. He tells me he can see me rolling my eyes. "How? Your window is open, but you are on the moon. I can still see you." I hang up and lick up the white dust off the floor. He calls me before I sleep and after he wakes up for the night shift. "Please tell me you've bought more." "I don't need sugar. I have enough for myself." "Ah, so you do have sugar. Will you not share with me?" I turn my head and look out the window. The milk moon hangs far and high in the black blank space between him and I. "No, I will not share with you." I tell him to enjoy the dry dust of the moon beneath his feet, and I end the call. I watch him bend over and take his finger to the ground, covering it in chalky dust. He stands and yells my name. I pretend to sleep and squint my eyes to see him snicker and suck at his ring finger in pleasure. The man on the moon whispers my name, and I wake up. The moon is gone, and he lays beside me. He is covered in dust from head to toe. It sits in his hair down to his toes that grittily rubs against my calf. I cringe when his crusty cocaine-trimmed mouth kisses my cheek. I can smell the pungent space between us. The man from the moon tells me I need to buy more sugar. He ate the spoonful I kept at my bedside table. I get up and wipe off the moon's dirty crumbs from my body. He tells me to pick up my spoon, and when I reach for my spoon laying on the floor, I see his reflection. I watch him lick at his arms, elbows, knees, and toes. His drool drips down his chin as a tear streaks down my cheek, and I hear him chuckle when I tell him I'm leaving. Where are you going? He asks me. To buy more sugar.
That was fantastic. Great job, Jazzy. Great job, Aimee. So I posted in the chat for everybody. Hopefully everybody saw that. But I'd like to start the Q&A with the authors getting a chance to ask each other a question, and then we can go from there and open this up to questions from everybody. So maybe Aimee, do you want to kick it off? Since Jazzy just finished reading. That was great, you guys. That was fantastic.
Jazzy, what I wanted to ask you, particularly in this last piece you read, Sugar, I noticed that you have like a very dreamlike quality to your diction. And I wanted to see if that was a conscious decision that you make or just like something that your stories sort of just veer off into.
Yeah, I meant to make it kind of dreamlike, like not to make sense, but sort of make sense metaphorically, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was intentional.
Jazzy, what attracts you to having that kind of dreamlike quality in the stories?
I don't know. I just like writing different things, writing out of the ordinary, I guess. It's fun to me and I enjoy it.
Cool. Do you have any questions for Aimee?
I do. I have two. My first one is, how long did it take you to complete the story? Because it feels so full, complex, and like full of detail. I felt like I really knew the world that I was reading. So how long did that take you to complete?
Well, like the first, I would say, I wrote the page like a long time ago, but I sort of stopped looking into that story. But then I guess maybe I started writing it again, and I was writing really fast paced. I just felt like the story was super easy to, like, I don't know, just like the way I was thinking about it. So I guess in total, maybe like a week or two to write it.
Oh, cool. And my second one is, what is your favorite genre or tone to work with?
Genre, I don't know. I like stories that are weird, obviously, because I like write weird, or like stories that have interesting characters and they're in these like weird situations. So I guess literary surrealism or realism would be that. Yeah.
I fell in love with your narrator. She's lovingly unlovable or unlovingly lovable, but she suddenly in the beginning, I mean, not suddenly in the beginning, I was kind of like, yeah, okay, I get you. And then she shifted over time, where originally it was like that her mother was like the money grabber and, oh, we've got to, use your wiles to get the right guy. But then over time, she was revealed as being quite preoccupied with herself at the expense of others. So I want to know your process. I want to say thank you for that, number one, because I didn't see it coming, and I'm happy that I didn't see it coming, right? And that I had a range of emotions in regard to the narrator. But how were you aware of that development of her being revealed a little bit at a time to be not quite as the victim as she originally portrayed herself to be?
Well, first off, thank you. Second of all, I feel like when I was starting to write the story, I wanted her to be, well, I mentioned that the setting is this little town in Virginia. And I figured, it's sort of in a town or state that's very like, well, I've never been to Virginia, but I assume, or from reading about that area, it's like there's a lot of maybe old fashioned or, quaint style of attitudes and people. So I wanted to make this protagonist who was sort of the opposite, like the anti person that would live there. And I wanted her to be sort of, she grew up there and her mom was like a debutante. So she knows how to act, but it's like her own mindset is slowly being revealed in the story. So while I was writing, I knew that I wanted her to be this like sort of mean, sort of nasty character to oppose sort of even the mom group that she hangs out with and her best friend Sally Mae, who they're all like very nice and you know, they're accustomed to like domestic life, and she doesn't want to be a part of that, but she knows growing up that that was sort of what was intended for her. So she doesn't fight it, but she sort of reveals her emotions. So yeah, throughout the story, I wanted her to show herself more to the reader.
Maybe Aimee, can I ask a quick follow-up? I mean, I can, I don't even need to ask. I mean, the story, like, I mean, like, just in your description of it and in the story itself, it leans like quietly political, right? Does politics like play a role in the way you approach writing, or is it something like you feel like you want to work into your stories?
I feel like it's something that before I wasn't intentional on doing. Now I think in the current environment, I feel like it's coming out slowly, but I've never written something and said, oh, I want this to be the message behind it. I feel like just like, it's like sort of a subconscious choice to do that.
Yeah, hard not to nowadays. Other questions, anybody else? Or who else, not anybody else?
Well, this is a question for Aimee. Since you said you've never been to Virginia, it's just kind of like pulling something out of the air. I don't know if you've ever been horse racing or into jockey stables or the other kinds of things that you talked about. And I'm wondering, why would a writer write about things that they haven't had any experience with?
When I've written in the past, I feel like I've been too in my comfort zone. So I've written stories that don't take place in a certain town, but they could mimic qualities of towns that I've been to and things like that. So to write this story, I did have to do like I did have to look up a lot of things. And you're right, I don't know anything about horse races. When the character says she doesn't know anything, that was me. That was like my opinion on horse racing. I don't know anything. But I did have to look up some stuff, and I just feel like it's interesting to write about things you don't know about, to sort of leave your comfort zone and be able to sort of see a different, I guess in this case, like a different character than what I've been used to writing.
Maybe can we ask that of Jazzy too? Because Jazzy, both of your stories are very like fantastical, like, and they're not. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing. I'm hoping you're not writing from personal experience. but yeah, like what kind of draws you into writing about things that are unfamiliar from your own experience, I guess.
I just think it's fun, like writing about the ordinary, like writing these new images that we're not used to feeling or seeing or hearing. And I just think it's very interesting. I like to feel my stories a lot. And when I feel it with other writers, I just think it's like very intriguing and fun.
Well, your story,
So, yeah.
particularly, I was thinking of the the butterfly story. I don't know. Have you collected or dissected butterflies before, or did you just pull that out because of the beauty of butterflies, or maybe you have this desire to inflict pain on insects? I don't know, or on people for that matter, since the protagonist ends up quite painfully acted upon. And what's also interesting is that the second part of the question, I suppose, is that the grandmother is portrayed as a positive figure because the father is kind of this negative figure as you portrayed them. But then the grandmother inflicts this tremendous pain on the daughter, granddaughter, knowing full well that she's not going to be able to fly. And that, at least I don't think she is going to fly. So there's that the positive character becomes, the positive figure in the story becomes a very negative figure. And I don't know, was that intentional?
Yes, that was intentional. I tried to like surprise my readers a lot in my work, so that was very intentional. And to answer your first part of the question, I do get inspired by like the beauty of butterflies. They're beautiful. But what mostly caught my interest in writing about this is, those boxed butterflies, how they lay them flat. Yeah, that's what inspired me, like the whole dissection thing.
Jazzy, I really enjoyed the fairy tale nature of the butterfly, with the legitimate fairy tale backup of violence, right? And first, I want to say I like yay for that, and I thought it was well done, and the pairing of the granddaughter being strapped down. I mean, I was like, why was the mom strapped down, for heaven's sake? But anyway, she strapped down, and just that needle. That was great. I loved that moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I love this story.
Yeah.
For another class, this is just a kind of a side observation. I just read In the Penal Colony, Kafka's In the Penal Colony, which is sort of a classic of literature, and it's very eerie how similar the end of Jazzy's story is to the actual like way the apparatus works in the penal colony. I mean, it's kind of amazing, like the echo there. So Masa, heads up. Other questions for Jazzy and Aimee?
I suppose I have a question. How do you, like, this is for either author, but how do you guys like develop your characters? Like, do you imagine yourself in their shoes, or is like the dialogue and their actions just purely like intuition?
Well, for me, I just kind of go with the flow of what I'm writing. I have like a simple idea of what I'm thinking of, and then I keep it going. But honestly, whenever I start reading, it completely changes to my original idea. So I just really go with the flow, and I guess it's just intuition.
Well, I would say I feel like I go through phases where I write certain characters. Like right now, I'm really into writing characters that are nasty and like attitude and mean and they're like I just right now I like writing complex characters in that sense that are mean, but on the inside they're in turmoil. So it depends.
I want to compliment how you just so smoothly interjected a talking horse. Masterful.
Yeah, maybe Aimee, could you talk about that a little bit? Because that was something consistent throughout the story. I mean, the narrator says that she's planning to kill her husband at the beginning, right? Then the horse starts. I mean, a lot of the more outlandish elements, right, or the surprisingly like kind of less realistic elements, you introduce them so casually and don't dwell on them, right? It's just kind of matter of fact, and then you move on, which I think is nicely unnerving. Can you talk about like why you do it that way instead of like make it a kind of a grander approach or something?
This story was actually for one of my fiction classes in the program that I'm in right now. And we were given a prompt to introduce, I think it's based on a Greek legend, actually, something about a horse and a woman, something like that. But we were basically, the fact is to introduce this horse, and they talk and they give someone terrible life advice, and it's just like, don't dwell on how the horse comes out, like it's just accepting it. And so I think that was basically it. Like I just wrote in this horse that is, I don't know if it's super strongly hinted, but he is manipulating this woman, and he wants her to spend all this money on him and ultimately free him, but he doesn't really care about her, and she is just so like needy in that sense that she accepts it. So I didn't want her to be like, oh, why is this horse talking? Because I felt like that would drag the plot down a little bit. So I just wanted her to be like, okay, this horse is talking to me, and he wants me to do all this, and I'll do it because I like, I'm desperate, basically.
Nicely monstrous horse. Masa asked a question and then also just changed her picture in the chat. Maybe Jazzy, do you want to take that one first, and then Aimee?
Sure. Are the narrators suffering from trauma? Yes, I would say so. I feel like in my pieces, I always feel like my characters are dealing with something deeper internally, but I try not to make that obvious. So yes. And is that what affects their actions? Definitely, yeah.
I would also say yes. I feel like my character is sort of traumatized by her mom. But in this, she still mentions that she still loves her and everything, but it's obvious that this whole money grabbing situation impacted her, like even way back when. And just like feeling like her looks were basically what got her this rich man, and then it's like the money's gone, and so really what's the point of everything? So yeah, I feel like it's trauma.
So this is what we teach in the Laverne Creative Writing program is trauma and cruelty. Not really, I'm kidding. I hope I'm kidding. Other questions from anybody? Otherwise, I'm going to ask a couple, but I'd love to hear from other people who haven't had a chance to ask a question.
We heard that there was a prompt behind Aimee's. I was wondering whether there was any prompts behind Jazzy's.
Yeah, both of these were from a class assignment, but I honestly don't remember the prompt. But yeah, there was a prompt, but I don't remember it.
I don't remember the exact prompt either, Jazzy, but I'd rather have the stories than remember the prompt.
Did those, maybe I can ask maybe Jazzy and Angela, did those stories come out of there was a class on the uncanny? Is that what that came from?
Writing the strange. So the uncanny was part of that. But yeah, writing the strange. You wrote both stories as part of that class, right, Jazzy?
To Be a Butterfly was written for Writing the Strange, and Sugar was written for flash fiction, actually. Yeah.
They're both familiar. Sorry, I got them mushed.
That's okay.
Well, then this is a question for you, Sean, as in creative writing. If in most of the classes students are writing from prompts, do you then encourage them to figure out their own prompts? Is that what is that where the direction that a student coming out of creative writing goes?
You know,
could I say something first?
Please do.
So when Jazzy and I were referring to the word prompt, we're using that, I think, in a different way than would be the standard of understanding of here's this writing prompt as a writing exercise, maybe. So it's not, at least in my class, and Jazzy's in my flash class and has been in my Writing the Strange class. I provide prompts, ideas. Let's start somewhere. Let's get some generative writing, but it's never pointing toward an end. It's always very open. And then I also say, do whatever you want with it. Be free, be freedom. So have freedom in your writing. Even if I say you need to have a wicked woman in your story, don't have a wicked woman in your story. So it's really not like a writing exercise and a follow-up. It's students come up with highly original work that has the genesis in their own imagination.
Yeah, and I would say from my part of it, and I mean, there's quite a few people who've taken quite a few classes from me here, and anybody can speak up. Emma, Sienna, Alyssa, good to see you, Alyssa, kind of, or at least your name. Hey, yeah, Al, in my classes, in like the fiction and nonfiction classes, I start almost every single class with a prompt, but it's more of a generative prompt. It's not like a story about this, but it's like, think about a time you got in a fight with your parent or something and write about, I mean, like, so it's, we start the classes with just like quiet writing time. And I tell the students, I'm pretty sure I tell them this, I hope to tell them every time that they can use those kind of prompts for free writes to start developing story ideas, but they can also ignore the prompt and just like write whatever they want. They can write about basically subject matter for stories is up to students entirely. I ask that it exist in conversation with what we're talking about in class, which is more craft lessons, but there's no like, go do this, go write that. I mean, I try to have I want students to write, or I want all writers to write what they want to write, right? I mean, I don't want to impose subject matter on them. So I don't think, I mean, I don't know, you guys can, Jazzy and Aimee can say that I'm lying right now, but they're not, so I must be telling the truth, right? Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that answer too, because I'm just a stodgy nonfiction writer and wouldn't even ever try to do fiction because that's just so out of my ken. And so I appreciate the answer.
Yeah, and if anybody, I mean, this is not intended to be a pitch, but there's a creative writing class in in January. Amy's coming back. We're having creative writing workshop, which is just focusing on student work. And since it's over Zoom, there won't be any rats running through the classroom this time, which happened a couple of years ago. So
I think that helped creative development, actually, the rats. That helped.
The rat was the prompt. Good old Barkley. But yes, so in that class, the students will be using they will be using a book of prompts, but it's not, they get to choose the prompts that they're responding to, and it's very generative. So students will be just like generating whatever they want to, and then also reading one another's works and giving each other feedback. And it's a nice collaborative, bonding, positive class. I think it's a fun class. Yes, Taylor would like the rats. She certainly would. I think maybe we have one more thing. I mean, Aimee, so a couple times you referenced that you're in, and Jazzy said this in the intro, that you started your grad program. Do you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Well, it is a weekend program at Mount St. Mary's. It's been really fun. I'm taking one fiction course called novel writing, and then a special topics called the creative habit, and they are two very contrasting classes. But I wrote this story for my novel writing course, and yeah, I mean, it's been fun. I feel like I've been able to write a lot after taking a year off. It's been fun to start writing again in like a structured class setting. So.
Good. I'm glad the program is going well. And I think, I mean, like I just said in the chat, there's so many pieces in that story that I mean, I think you could just, I mean, it'd be interesting to see that built out. Not that I'm saying go turn that into a novel, but you know, you got 2 weeks, and I mean, it is November, right? National Novel Writing Month or something like that. So so maybe 4 weeks, something like that. Masa wants to buy it already too. So thank you all for coming, but especially if we can do one more big virtual or audible round of applause for Jazzy and Aimee. You guys did a great job. It was great to hear your work, and just fantastic work, and thank you.